My name is Ulysses, and it is a pleasure to be on the stage with you all. The presentation I have prepared used to be called Going Big and Staying Home, but I only ever arrived at what a talk should be a day or two before. So, the topic hasn't changed, but I am framing things a bit differently. Today, we are going to talk about how things come from seemingly nothing, i.e., the opportunity that comes from the vast and unknowable abyss. Before we begin, please note that I'm doing a lot of reading. I'm still here in the room with you, but I have a lot of words to get through and time limit that I need to hit. It might be a bit cathartic to close your eyes and let this whole experience remind you of all the things you love or hate about your dad. Daddy issues, gang gang.
Gang gang.
The plan for this talk is as follows. As a whole, we are going to talk through moments of my career, but through the ever-nuanced lens of luck. We will start with some introductions, then I will personally define luck. I will expand on why the industry careers are rigged and why you shouldn't fret about it. I will expand on some cold hard facts of my career, then we will pack up and make way for the next speaker. Well, I'll leave, you guys should stay. All right, let's do this one last time.
It's cool.
Who's addressing you today? Hey y'all, my name is Ulysses. I love reptiles, dressing up, martial arts, music, and Dune. Amongst other things, I design audio for video games. Most people don't know what that means, but basically, I'm the kind of game dev that looks after everything that a player hears when playing a game. I'm the person that sets up how music plays during a boss fight, the person who makes your laser sound like tripping through time and space. I am the best friend and mortal enemy of voice actors, game designers, and animators. If you identify as any one of those titles, you're entitled to a hug, and there will be a boxing match shortly after. Over the past 2 years, I've had the pleasure of working on a variety of moderately high-profile video games. As a freelancer, I've reintegrated the audio systems of the tactics puzzler, Desktop Dungeons Rewind. I've synthesized blocks, bloops, and bleeps for the deep-sea pollution cleaning game, Lord and North, and among other things. I've sculpted the many characters, creatures, and bosses present in the unambiguously and beautifully illustrated Afro-fantasy adventure game, Tales of Kinzera-Za. With respect to all that, I have achieved in what is a relatively short career span, I still have to say that I am profoundly fortunate. Not fortunate in a way that signals virtue, or in a way that says that I am undeserving, but fortunate in a way that acknowledges that our multi-billion-dollar industry is fucked. And yet, it is still possible to achieve many incredible things. So why do I choose to use luck to define my career? Well, simply because I can't quite make sense of why I'm here. There are generic answers that I can offer, like I've worked hard, but so have others. Perhaps I've been at the right places at the right times, but this is true for many people I know personally. I've also tried to rationalize that maybe this is all random, however, I do have some consistency where others do not. The most rational explanation I can come up with is that my career exists at a meeting point of chaos and intention. The chaos of the game industry, smashing at full speed into the intention I put into my craft. That result is luck. So how exactly am I defining luck? Well, a simple expression we've all heard, and if not, here you go. Luck equates to opportunity plus preparation. A curious statement. Now let's unpack that. As a baseline, I will say opportunity is somewhat unknowable. It is hard to define how, when, or why any possibility comes or goes from you. Beyond that, however, opportunity is an external circumstance that directly enables you to pursue your career ambitions. A job listing, a missing sense of direction at work, or a stray conversation between colleagues. Each of these provide a chance to validate your abilities, compensate you for your time, or give you the space to grow through a challenging idea. On the other side of this coin, preparation is all the activities that you as an individual can affect. Preparation is all the internal work, research, and investment that we put into our practice, our habits, and our community. Preparation can be anything from learning operational tech skills, organizing a quiz night with other devs, or simply shitposting on Blue Sky. The point in any of these activities is that you are establishing your interests, your skills, and how people relate to you. So if this is all there is to luck in a career, then I personally have a fundamental problem. Too many of my goddamn friends are goddamn unemployed, or they are not where they dang well should be. Even with all the preparation they undergo in conjunction with the opportunities that are present in the global industry, there are still people struggling to realize their career ambitions. Beyond a generalized understanding of what you need to do, we can't ignore the fact that each of our lives and the broader space we live in is contextual. Each country has their own infrastructure, societal institutions, or community conditions that alter the trajectory and pace of your career ambitions. From my perspective, context is thus a force magnifier of sorts on luck. Coming from a particular environment or being in the vicinity of people that can reliably support your aspirations all change the overall direction of your career. With that in mind, if luck is all the internal efforts matching your external moments, then they are cumulatively divided by the context that you inhabit. It is through this understanding that I came to understand that context is a dream killer. Here are the conditions in SA that almost made me pack up everything and become a dog trainer when I was fresh out of university. Shout out to Nick Hall for doing the actual research on these dynamics that I've personally experienced. Firstly, we are still a fragmented establishment of a professional community. There are pockets of people that can speak towards specific game development situations and how to navigate that, but oftentimes there is a disconnect between what people aspire to be and what we are able to speak to. National and local events supplement this, but overall, it is still a persistent problem to not have seniors speaking to juniors in our industry. Second, our government does not really fuck with us like that. If I'm being honest, our government structures fail or are not able to support game development as a creative industry and outlet. The funding opportunities to pitch or sustain a game idea or team are slim, if not existent here. Currently, there are noteworthy accelerator programs, but they are still foundationally figuring out how to support developers meaningfully. Thirdly, our local player base, largely speaking, cannot access or is not interested in accessing the content we choose to make. There is a disconnect between what players can either reasonably afford or are even interested in spending their money on. The Fortnites, FIFAs, and Call of Duties go a lot further than anything we produce locally, even with a studio like Freelance making the games that they make. It's also fair to say that movies, music, and art as a creative culture receive a lot more recognition in other places of the world than in SA, despite the scale of the gaming industry. Fourth, as a country, we don't have enough formalized institutions at different scales of development for developers to move through. We are an oh-so-small community with narrow options to focus or nurture our creative spirit. Active game studios with commendable working conditions that are able to recruit people sustainably are nameable on one hand. While in Johannesburg alone, at a single university, the student intake is 100 potential developers per year. Fifth, which I feel is the most damning, is sometimes we generally lack access to standard equipment and conducive game development environments. Having access to a computer, software to work with, general safety and security, the internet, or even electricity is something everyone in SA will have some sort of headache over at some point. Now, all of that may sound dire, and things have changed and continue to change, but there is an overall definitive truth in all of this in the SA community that we can all agree on. On this side of the hemisphere, we are cool. We are rad as fuck. Time and time again, developers, artists, and scholars here prove that we can make real cool, experimentally weird, profoundly knowledgeable, historically elegant, crass while funny, emotionally moving games all the time. We make magic happen, and we still love what we do, even if the odds aren't always in our favor. Speaking to our collective industry experiences as well, every region of the world has its own specific set of challenges. What is apparent amongst all game dev communities is that we do what we can, excuse me, with the cards that we're dealt. That was the winning hand I was dealt that was the winning hand I was dealt as a 2020 bachelor's degree graduate. Even if it felt like a baffling high amount of 2s and 4s in my hand, I could still feel deep in my bones that I could and would make this career work. My personal context was giving me a platform to stand on. I had a stable home. My parents were wary but trusting. I had friends in a community I could turn to. Most of all, I had a fire for making games. Things could have gone sideways for any number of reasons, but the context I had in South Africa defined what would ultimately be my approach to my career. From this understanding, I made a concerted effort to establish my career. I took the time to consider multiple career paths for myself. I would observe others here and abroad, and interacted with as many sources of information and communities as possible to figure out what a sustainable creative career looks like. What I did was very personal, but I can say that my technical approach to the industry is to practice and demonstrate skills, establish and periodically reevaluate my aspirations, and then most importantly, maintain mutual contact with people who support, challenge, or inspire me. From my context, I also developed a personal set of values and philosophies. I need to pursue my career with self-motivation, respect, persistence, and most of all, what I find lacking, even in our industry at times, compassion. With all of that said, let's walk through 4 concrete examples from my career through the expression of luck. Case study number 1. The desktop, a dungeon, and arena. The first official industry job I landed was with QCF Design in 2022. The luck being that QCF Design were looking for a sound designer. The context of this goes that Danny Day and the QCF team were looking to overhaul their 2010 classic roguelike desktop dungeons. The idea being to retain while remastering the game's original charm into a new game called Desktop Dungeons Rewind. This paved the way for new ideas and direction amongst art, design, and most importantly for me, audio. Adding on to that context, most sound designers already had a job or didn't seem to invest any effort into being visible or interacting with other devs. Having recognized this, I decided to build myself up as the most visible and easy to interact with sound designer in SA. I spent approximately 1 year crafting 5 to 10 second audio clips while demonstrating things I thought were cool and then describing what I was learning. All the while, I would interact with anyone that showed any kind of interest with my work wherever I could. At the tail end of this endeavor, I would also put on a game jam with Raika and Shakir called Sunday. They have a game on the arcade floor as well at the moment called IQ, so please go check it out. As far as I understand, Sunday floated around the SA community and reflected positively on me as a developer. For those reasons, I assume QCF found me, so I was interested and contacted me to perform a sound test. The test was adequate, and after some deliberation between me and another candidate, QCF contacted me for the opportunity to be their in-house sound designer for 3 months. I would be reintegrating audio systems while also designing new audio where necessary. I learned how to use audio natively in Unity, which was like pulling teeth, but it still gave me the closest perspective of how audio fits into a development cycle, technically and artistically. One of my biggest takeaways from this experience is the fact that you don't have to be the best to work in the industry. Having a baseline set of skills makes you considerable for anything. There is an undoubtable edge you get by demonstrating proficiency, but after a certain point, preference becomes a point of selection rather than purely who is objectively the best. Next is you should not get into your own way of doing a job well. It's very easy to get caught up in what you imagine the role to be or how you would show up, but being flexible towards what is needed over what would be nice is ultimately more important. Case study number 2, the Chronicles of iGame Audio. The second stroke of luck came to me in the form of a moderately big name in the London game audio scene, who was coincidentally also looking for a sound designer. The context this time being that the UK scene is bustling with game projects that a single person simply does not have the time for. Damien Shepherd is the founder of iGame Audio, and while very capable in his own right as a creative sound designer, to grow his business, he needs to transition into a technical audio director. This leaves the door open for a slew of creative sound design roles. Additionally, it is no exaggeration to say that the UK scene is brimming with audio talent. The UK industry has a fair amount of studios and schools engaging with game audio professionally. So how exactly do I find myself being approached by Damien instead of the other way around? It's a lot of smoke. How do I find myself being approached by Damien after only 6 months of formal audio work? Well, firstly, I was spending a lot of time hanging out with the UK sound designers. We have the same time zone, a similar interest in game audio, but more importantly, a similar frustration with how the industry functions on multiple levels. Nothing breeds companionship quite like disdain. Second is that during my time at QCF, I was spending most of my free time recording and designing audio. I was at the height of my fascination, encountering game audio as a creative art form. I would wonder, what gives anime its over-the-top otherworldly charm? Or how is Overwatch able to make their game sound so clear despite being so chaotic? Each time I had a question like this, I would develop a long-form sound design clip where I could untangle this and discuss it openly with others. Third is that a single official project has an uncanny snowball effect. One title can easily lead to another, and oftentimes will highlight you over someone else who doesn't. When Damien and I finally met for an interview, we spoke about all these efforts, why I was even around the UK scene, and more technically, what game audio concepts I was familiar with. Damien took a liking to the perspectives I had to offer, perspectives that contrasted the UK scene, but still had an overall passion for making video games. Following our meeting, I signed on to iGame Audio as one of the on-call sound designers. My job would be perpetual, pay per hour, and based on what tasks I was assigned. I would define my creative output wherever required, support other sound designers whenever required, and retain my own autonomy to work on other projects. In the ecosystem of iGame Audio, autonomy became a fundamental working condition. Through this workspace, I was doing the same thing I was doing in exploring audio, but now being paid to do it. My difference and similarity between people and the space formed a valuable source of creative delivery. I also realized that no one invests into you as much as yourself in your career. It would have been easy to adopt a business as usual approach, but I was driven to be sure of the benefit I would walk away with from each project. I strived to always find a point of intrigue that I could learn from or challenge I could overcome to present to others in the audio community. All the while still maintaining enough creative stability to satisfy Damien and whoever employed us. Case study number 3, my wacky way into the woods. As fate would have it, another person in the world needed a sound designer, and that person was Anthony Tan. Anthony was Australia's indie darling game developer working vigorously at crafting the artistically endearing game, Way to the Woods. Don't ask me or Ant when the game is coming unless you're also willing to put up your dukes. It is coming though, date bayo, believe. But anyways, you see, Anthony has a problem. He can't find a sound designer who is both affordable, artistically inclined, and someone he trusts. Enter me, the saucy monotone sound designer, Ulysses at sea. Still living at home with my parents and with 5 months of formal game dev experience, money wasn't the biggest concern for me at the time because my parents graciously allowed me to stay at home until a point of self-sustainability. Additionally, my larger concern was establishing a baseline level of experience for being a game audio professional. I keep forgetting, I'm sorry. At this point in time, I also unfortunately came down with a severe illness, being chronically online, and having my IA, young adult insanity. Imagine being at a circus and you're both the audience, the announcer, and the dancing bear. In essence, I was in my golden era posting excessively online and enthusiastically sharing what I loved about audio. One day, the feral parts of my feed crossed with a professional, and I got a very small moment of viral fame. Anthony Tan saw this, and from one dummy to another, he extended a hand in marriage. I mean, mutual respect, of course. We eventually met up and started talking about his Deer-themed project and what artistic intent meant to either of us. I told him about this game, Far Lone Sales. It was a game that I felt supported me in what was one of the lowest points of my life due to an intense breakup. We related over the idea of how emotionally visceral games can be without us knowing beforehand. From that point onwards, we were on the same wavelength for the types of games we wanted to see in the world. I want to stress that beyond relating to each other, the authenticity and care that I constantly put on display gave Anthony the confidence that we could figure out this project together. So throughout a year of paid intermittent work, I joined Way to the Woods as a sound designer. I learned Unreal Engine 4 on the job while recording and designing audio. I developed a sense of aesthetic style that the game required. I met my composition heroes in Ivy and Surashu, who worked on Steven Universe, and most profoundly, I gained one close friend. The lessons from this experience being that there is no shame in talking your way into a position. I already had the capacity and mentality to be working as a game dev from my university experience and previous title. Whatever I didn't know could be learned in the process. I also came to feel that social media can be awful for reasons that we're all aware of, but it can also be a good thing. I came to realize that being comfortable online is a lot easier when you change social media from a social obligation into a social tool. Number 4, and our last case study, Zhao and the Bad Man. That's me, I'm the bad man. It is the year of our Lord and Savior, 2023, and how lucky is it that Surgeon Studios is looking for not just a sound designer, but a voice designer. For the past 4 years, a truly fascinating game is being built from the ground up. The game is called Roadman Zhao, Big Ups in the Motherland. That was the title pitch that I made to the studio, but it didn't test well for some reason. So let's go by its official title, Tales of Kintera Zhao. Zhao was being developed by a 50-plus team at Surgeon Studios, and it is a level unto its own as it embraces African culture and iconography. The audio lead, Robert Brown, needed some additional hands to get the audio experience over the finish line. Rob had invested 2 years of development time into the project across music, audio, and tech. What was lagging behind in development was the processing of vocals and the design of creatures in the game. There isn't much time to train someone into this role given the pace of development. What Rob needs is a team member with enough experience with voice design who can take on instructions but also use their own initiative for creative tasks. 7-ish months prior to the situation unfolding, I had realized the vacuum in the game audio community. Everyone loved designing the audio for guns, character abilities, and cinematics. But where was the love for ambiences, character vocalizations, or synthesis? I had just finished my adventures with synthesis and had planned to move on to all the ways that voices appear in game media. From this fascination, I began gaining some notoriety. I would ask incessant questions that were focused and intentional in understanding these game audio concepts. 7 months passed, and through the help of dedicated voice designers from Bungie, Riot, and Heart Machine, I developed several variations of voice design as a craft. Meanwhile, at iGame Audio, my work entered a very stable set of routines. We had a consistent stream of projects and tasks were coming in, and when I wasn't busy with those, I would be doing something equally important, harassing my colleagues. The premier of those efforts being my now close pal and super gay stylish friend, Eli Forster. Me and Eli became great friends, and as it happens, they proceeded to work on Zao. In this brand equation, all culminating in a company Christmas party conversation, Rob pitches to Eli that the team could use some extra help. Rob was curious and confident about me from my engagement on Slack, while Eli had already known and worked with me through iGame Audio. As a result, I became an easy choice for the job. I had already illustrated my creativity through my voice design work. I had already established a sense of my personality through Slack and offshoot interactions. My familiarity with Eli assured Rob of my abilities and our likely smooth development cycle. And finally, I had a fundamental experience from a land that the team didn't have too many voices from inherently, South Africa. Surgeon hired me to work on Zao for 6 months, where I would receive creative direction from Rob. From those assignments, I would define the ultimate shape and form of many creatures, bosses that inhabit the game. When I wasn't designing voices, I would attend meetings or give reports on audio and hang out with colleagues on lunch breaks. After my development cycle ended, I took my leave of all work and took inventory of the fact that working on this game had fundamentally changed my personal context. I was exposed to a new and attainable level of development standards and practices. I received a wealth of insight, colleagues and friends. I attained a career milestone in working on a game that put genuine effort into telling a story about Black people, African values, and spirituality. Last but not least, I got paid ridiculously well. That EA money is no joke. If they come knocking, raise those rates.
Let's go. Get that money, boy.
I'm sorry, I'm a trauma. My primary takeaway from the whole experience was that you should never discount your own curiosity and aspiration for things. If you really want to do something, show people that you want to do it. Chances are someone will take notice. Finally, the value of people who actively support you when you aren't around, challenge you when you are, and inspire you every other time is life-changing. Not only because they do that for you, but also because you can do that for them in turn. And that is my career so far. To close off, I want to take a moment to say that a common theme in everything here isn't traditional luck. Rather, that our individual influences and efforts are not something to take lightly. If anything, do your utmost in whatever way you can to persist in finding your place in this industry, ethically and compassionately. Even if you have to take a break, take your break and come back stronger. In the simplest form and most general things you should be doing for your career, make things, demonstrate them, and mutually relate to people. Remember folks, build communities, not networks. My name is Ulysses again. I do audio. If you want to chat, please feel welcome. Be safe, take care of each other. Keep Palestine in your hearts, wallets, and actions. Peace and love and necessary conflict to you all.